answer.
Thank you for tuning in to Think Tech. I'm your host, Attila. Today, on Next Big Thing, our show where we get people with great ideas, a place to share them with the world. We have two very special guests, and we're going to be talking about air conditioning in the schools. Bet you didn't know that was a big hot topic, but it is. So joining us today, we actually have Howard Wiig. He's with DBEDT, and we also have Martin Despang. He's the Associate Professor at University of Hawaii. Thank you guys for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Now, you brought in an interesting, Howard, you brought in an interesting article here from the Star Advertiser that talks about funding for cooler schools. It looks like that's moving ahead, and there's probably a need for it. So can you tell me a little bit about what's going on?
Absolutely, positively. We have quite a few of our public schools that are achieving on hot days 90 to 95 degrees in the classroom. That is utterly, totally, completely unacceptable. I've read reports of kids having trouble writing on their paper because their paper is covered with sweat. Not a good learning environment. Supposedly, this is a first world country. We should not be tolerating this for our students. However, the knee-jerk reaction to countering these conditions is to air condition them. But let me get this straight. I've been dealing with public schools for many, many, many years. The typical design allows heat to pour through the roof, the solar heat, to pour through the walls, to pour through the windows. Trying to air condition a environment like this, to me, is like putting an ice cube in a heated oven. You are defeating your purpose almost immediately. And think in terms of our state budget. We have a surplus, quote unquote, but everybody, his brother, sister, uncle, and aunt wants a chunk of that surplus. Just the other day, 2 legislative committees approved $25 million to cool 6 schools. Now that doesn't sound like much, but implication number 1, how are you going to pay for that air conditioning budget down the road year after year after year after year? Number 2, when these 6 schools get their air conditioning, guess what the other 253 public schools that didn't get air conditioning are going to say? Give me air conditioning, give me air conditioning. Let's see, 255 public schools, 10 buildings per school, 2,550 buildings. What are the energy implications for that? It means that although our electrical consumption has been going down in this state, even as the economy grows, because we have so much PV on the roofs, we have so much solar water heating, and I'm an energy efficiency guy, we have converted so many homes, so many buildings from inefficient, wasteful products to high-efficiency products. Our demand for electricity is actually going down, such that Hawaiian Electric has just a couple of days ago shut down the downtown power plant. They don't need it anymore. But, and that is very good because the state has one of the most aggressive energy policies in the entire nation. 70% clean energy by the year 2030, which is only 16 years away. And it sounds impossible, but we're ahead of schedule because we're doing such a good job. Now, you enter with all these public schools clamoring for air conditioning. What's going to happen to that downward drop? It's probably going to go right back up again.
So you're saying that the solution is to change the architecture in some way, and it's good we have Martin here because I see on his card that he's from the School of Architecture at UH. So does that make sense to you that putting air conditioning units in these inefficient buildings or poorly insulated buildings is not the right way to go?
I can totally support what Howard just said. I'm speaking on behalf of, as you said, the School of Architecture at UH here in Honolulu, but I'm also speaking on behalf of being a practicing architect of my firm, Despang Architekten. If you guys hear an accent, that's a German accent, so I come from Germany originally. And
hey, all of Europe sounds great to me, so it's my heritage, so you make me feel more at home.
There you go. I'm happy to do that. So coming from there, we have, after Fukushima, my own culture surprised me because we have almost overnight decided to get off nuclear power to get on renewable energy. And we have a certain similar kind of timeline, and only now, slowly but surely, we find out what that means as a culture, as a society, and there are some heavy efforts to be done in terms of converting. Where I come from, I really like your analogy about the ice cube and the oven. I allow myself to use another one because I've been coming here via Lincoln, Nebraska and Tucson, Arizona. So I've been in all possible climate zones and in all extremes, and I've survived them so far. And I'm coming to paradise, and I'm surprised to see, and I make this analogy to what we wear, very nicely dressed, by the way, here, my colleagues. And I'm seeing like the analogy to clothing, I'm seeing like buildings wearing winter coats. And then they overheat, and so in order to live, they have to wear a hat, and that has, you know, photovoltaics on a wind turbine that runs a fan that drags it out of their system. And so that's, you can do that, but I still see people running around with aloha shirts that are designed to let what I am surprised is the best air conditioning in the world. It's called trade wind air conditioning. I found that awesome. And so what I'm doing is I take a little bit advantage of the academic freedom that I have at UH, and we try to encourage the youngest generation to think ahead and maybe think even a little bit more beyond what we can do in reality, and Howard is doing great work, and I'm trying to do so much what I can when I practice as an architect. And we have, in fact, this is how, when I read that, you know, we reconnected, and I said we're building schools to the highest energy efficient standard in the world. It's the passive house standard. I'm always sorry for the term because it's very misleading, because passive in every culture is a term, it's more negative. It associates like being lazy on the couch and drinking beer. But what it means is
that's very specific.
But basically it means it's a building that uses close to no energy for heating or cooling, and you get by with that. And ever since a couple of years ago, we built these schools when it comes to new schools. And it's a tremendous effort, I have to say, because we live in a cold climate. You know, the analogy to the winter coat, you gotta, you know, clothe yourself really drastically and wear a down jacket. And so you do passive solar, whereas here, I'm saying again, I allow myself to be a newbie and be fairly new to the place. I've not even been here 2 years, but on a daily basis, I try to live what I teach and vice versa. I live in a double-sided corridor building which has no cross ventilation, but I have my jalousies open. I never had that nasty machine on down there because it just like doesn't make sense to me. Yesterday we had the Kona winds. I opened the hallway door a little bit, and I got some thermodynamics going on that work. And I totally agree with Howard. You know, the youngest generation, we can't gamble. We have to make sure that they have the best condition they grew up in. But if we do that in a way that it is future-oriented and progressive, meaning off the grid, we have the best advocates. We shouldn't forget that, because, you know, the buildings I design, they have no furnace because we're dealing more with the cold than the heat, although we have it actually sometimes in the hundreds over the summer. So we have both extremes. But the children go home and they tell their parents, hey, what's this furnace about in the winter? We don't have that. So why don't you guys think about getting rid of yours? So they really become ambassadors. So I totally agree with Howard. If we screw up with the young ones and condition them to air conditioning, and we're talking fossil air conditioning, we might make a huge mistake.
Well, you mentioned that Germany was changing things, that they decided to get away from nuclear energy.
First of all, yeah.
And it's kind of funny that you bring that up, because I thought there was also a movement to bring back a more regulated, dependable nuclear energy, because after everything is said and done, I'm under the opinion that nuclear energy is one of the most cleanest ways that we can generate power. Obviously without solar. And in a place like Germany, where there's not as much sun as we have here, wouldn't it make more sense to have nuclear there?
Well, I guess that's probably more Howard's, I guess, field of expertise. But as a practicing architect, I think about what we can all do to, I call it planet and people-friendly architecture. And saving the planet means every building we build doesn't take anything from the earth that we can't give back. So that gets us to that we first of all should use the mechanisms that actually our ancestors have used, or generations and generations before they actually discovered technology. And that's the low-tech version of these principles. The trade winds have been blowing ever since, and they still work luckily. Hopefully we don't screw up too much of the world climate, so they will continue to blow. And then I always say, you have basically temperate climates, which is the German climate, 60% of that in the world, and then you have 40% tropical climates. And very simply said that the temperate climates need wall architecture, because Howard was talking about the walls and basically the heat seeping through the walls. So I'm saying, why even needing walls here? Because I'm always telling my students, this is roof architecture. We have the privilege to protect us actually from the sun and the rain, but we don't need walls for that, because actually then we keep that beautiful, most natural and innovative, sustainable, renewable, everyday, itself renewing air conditioning, trade winds air conditioning away. So if we do that, and that's, I think, is the problem that the schools we're talking about here were built under a different paradigm. They were built under, in a way that we can't even, I think we can't even blame the generations way back. They were under the impression that oil was an okay thing, that it was relatively abundant, and only slowly but surely we found out that's not the case. So these buildings were built under the, I won't call it best, but the impression of that's the way we basically build. And it was the pioneering days, and it was the days when America came and brought all these goodies to Hawaii. Looking back, maybe we should revise that and go back and think about how the people have lived here before. And I have to say, obviously, add technology. I will never say, go back to the beach here or get back to the cave is not a good thing, especially if we want to convince the people. And we only have a chance if we get the masses to be excited about this, and when we tell them to basically sacrifice their comfort in whatever level, we cannot win. Ecological architecture, that's how you call it, has tried that for too long and hasn't gotten anywhere. It had just marginalized itself. So I would basically say the key is to go back to low tech and cut down consumption, because again, it's just too comfortable or too convenient to think we can just keep our overconsumption up and basically switch from fossil to renewable energies, because if we all would use photovoltaics as much better as they are as oil, as of now this country doesn't have the capacity, to my knowledge, Howard can hopefully support that, to provide for a massive need. So as of now, the Chinese have that. It gets us from the dependency of Arab oil to the dependency of Chinese batteries. I'm not going any further politically. and plus, currently the environmental standards for making batteries in China aren't the best either. So it isn't thought through. But if we design a home that has no walls or has other mitigation systems to, sometimes we have the wind is too strong, we got to mitigate that. But we basically build a home the smart way. We can do that without technology. And then we have to run our iPad and have a refrigerator, and we can use some renewable energies to run these. But we basically have brought consumption down using these principles that have worked and will work in the future.
Well, I want to talk some more about that, and also what we can do to our own homes today without leveling them to make them more energy efficient. That's going to be an interesting conversation. But right now we do have to go to a break. So those of you watching, thank you for watching Next Big Thing. I'm your host, Attila, and with us today in the studio is Martin Despang and Howard Wiig. They're both experts in energy, and stay tuned. We're going to come back right in a moment. back, we're live, and you're watching Next Big Thing. I'm your host, Attila, and today we have two very special guests, Martin Despang and Howard Wiig. They're both here. They're energy experts. Martin's from the University of Hawaii School of Architecture, and Howard is an energy analyst with DBEDT, so they can probably answer any question or anything that you might want to know about energy efficiency, and particularly we're talking about classrooms and what it means to our students to have a good, nice, cool classroom where they can not have a sweaty piece of paper to write on and can actually focus when the classroom temperature is greater than 90 degrees. So we've got to come up with some better solutions. Now, during the break you mentioned that there was a special, something you had to share from one of your students.
Yeah, there was another program right in this studio, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and my guest was a 17-year-old senior from Campbell High School, and her topic was zero net energy classrooms, and she proposed three things. Get that dark roof, take that dark roof which absorbs heat and then transfers the heat from the roof into the classroom, coat it white. You can in a dark roof on a hot day in Hawaii will be as much as 178 degrees on the surface. Coat it white, it goes down to 105 degrees. There's almost no heat to transfer into the classroom. That's number one. Number two, take your walls. Same principle. Coat that with a reflective surface. Doesn't have to be white as long as it's loaded with something called titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is the element in sunscreen that makes it white and protects you from the sun's rays. You can mix that with paint, you can still have colors, but it reflects the heat instead of absorbing the heat. Number three, not tint your windows, but put window film on such that you still have a clear view to the outside, but you reflect up to 70%, maybe 75% of the sun's heat instead of letting all the sun's heat come through the windows. And by the way, you can certainly open the windows too. Number four, new invention called ceiling fans. Ceiling fans work really, really well in Hawaii. They give us just enough gentle breeze to remove our bodily heat and make us very, very comfortable. Number five, put in skylights, high-performance skylights that don't emit much of the sun's heat, and have them on sensors such that when you're getting enough skylight into the classroom, the artificial lights, electric lights, go off. It's mandatory. You can't turn them back on. You're eliminating not just the electricity from the lights, but you're eliminating the heat that is created by the lights. Finally, you put photovoltaics up on the roof. Number one, they shade the roof so that it has zero solar heat gain there. Number two, they provide as much energy as this classroom is consuming. Oh, and one more thing, when the day is through, all the electronic equipment in the classroom goes truly off via a master switch. There's something called phantom loads, where when we turn off our computers or televisions, we think they're off, but they're not really off. They're still consuming about 20% of their energy use. So we have a master switch to turn them 100% off. And you have brought your energy use in a typical classroom down very, very low while providing a very, very comfortable atmosphere, a good learning atmosphere for the kids and the teachers.
Well, that's what they do some of this stuff in the green buildings here in downtown. So we can take some lessons. I mean, they are trying to do these things.
Precisely.
I like the idea of the skylight. That's a new one. What I've also seen at some schools is that they have a solar powered ceiling fans.
Ventilation, yeah.
But no, the fans themselves. So when a cloud passes overhead, the ceiling fans kind of slow down, and then when the cloud goes away, you got your ceiling fans back. Is there a difference between ceiling fans? Because that's one of the things I've been kind of investigating. It seems to me like to run a ceiling fan based on our 35 cents a kilowatt It's about $5 a day per ceiling fan here. That's on a standard, I think it was a 60-watt ceiling fan. Is there? And I know there's these energy efficient ceiling fans that are like $200. Is there a big difference, or do you know anything about that?
I find it hard to believe that 60 watts in a given day could equal $5 a day, because 60 watts times 10 hours, 600 watts divided by 1,000, 6 kilowatt hours times 0.33 sounds more like 20 cents a day to me.
Oh, I took it 24 hours. Maybe it was a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you wouldn't have much use of running a ceiling fan at 3 in the morning, I don't think.
I do. I sleep with the ceiling fan.
Oh,
like
okay.
It
Well,
makes me feel cooler.
You're not
so
sleeping.
I can turn up my air conditioning. I
Yeah,
don't have
there
to
we
use it
go.
as much.
But you're not sleeping in the classroom in this case.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of these can also go into your personal home. You can
Absolutely. All these
tinted your
principles that apply to the classroom, I think you would agree, apply also to a good Hawaiian home. Yeah.
And a white roof. How do you get a roof white? Can you paint it? Or?
You paint it. You buy a 5-gallon bucket. You get a roller. You roll it on. It's real complicated.
Won't that look really awful after about a year?
Who's going? Well, let's see. We have steep roofs and we have flat roofs. A lot of roofs, especially commercial roofs, are flat. Nobody's going to see that flat roof, so white is okay. With steep roofs that you can see, you're absolutely right. People wouldn't want it white, but you can have it colored, and this is regardless of the technology of the roof, all the way including shingles. You can have it impregnated with titanium dioxide and get a lot of reflectivity off of that.
You know, I'm tempted now to go to Costco and get one of those big sunscreen bottles. You know, you get them by the gallon and just
Really?
do this on my roof. Probably accomplish the same thing.
You mean on your roof or on
Yeah,
yourself?
on the roof,
Yeah.
sure. Well,
Just buy a highly reflective roof coating. You can get coatings that reflect up to 95% of the sun's heat.
wow.
That's initial. The performance is going to go down with time.
So what have you done on your home to make it more energy efficient?
I've put a reflective roof up. I buy Energy Star appliances. I don't have AC. I don't even have ceiling fans. I'm very blessed to live in the back of Manoa. That certainly helps. I've got jealousy windows all over the place. I have high overhangs over the surfaces, my walls, so that I get very little direct sun. Overhangs really, really help. In a shaded environment in Hawaii, you have almost no solar heat gain.
And I assume your home is probably from at least no younger than the 50s.
1956.
See?
Yeah.
They just knew that was just the time when one started to get on, I call it the air conditioning drug or the oil industry drug, and we need to get off that drug. So I mean, the other thing that works really well, especially in Manoa, and I've been doing, right when I came here, I had the privilege to do a project with the School of Architecture, the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and the Building Industry Association. It was to build an alternative to the current home they're building for the Hawaiian Homelands, which is basically an American suburban hermetic 2x4 stud home that's foamed, and we have all these problems that I try to explain with the winter code. You know, once we wall ourselves in, we have to do all these things. So what Howard said is great for improving homes, and most of us, you know, we have homes, so we need to improve them. We don't want to tear them down, as you said. There's no doubt. But whenever we build new, we better go back to the basic principles and merge it with cutting-edge technologies, and we can be great. And I have this vision I want to share. We have that vision, and mine comes from that there is one of the most sustainable communities in the world is an island. And it's the island of Samsø in Denmark. That's my neighboring country. And how they did that is that they're small, and they're only a bunch of people, and they don't have governments or anything, so they just sat in a tavern one night, and they were like chatting, and they said, well, everyone talks about sustainability, why don't we just do it? And overnight they decide they do it. And they got really, really creative. They partly, I talked about this as wall architecture because it gets cold, they partly heat their homes with the milk of the cows. And that sounds weird, right? But
no,
think about it.
In European bathhouses, that's how they heat the walls. This is back in Roman times. It was the pipes in the walls.
You know it, yeah.
This is magic.
The milk comes out of the cow warm by nature, and it needs to be kept cold to stay fresh. So there's an energy potential, and it's obviously not only with the milk of the cows, but partially. So they're now basically to 100% self-sufficient. And you know, I allow myself again this kind of still newbie look, and I'm saying there's an island, here's an island, and I think if America wants to set a signal. And basically, and that's one of the reasons I am here, because I got so excited about it, because I had to live in Lincoln, Nebraska with the worst blizzards ever, and it gets humid as hell, and humidity that you feel because there's no trade wind there. Oh. And in Arizona, if I wasn't done with running by 7 in the morning, I better didn't start it. So to do, you know, apply energy efficiency and being self-sustained is really, really tough in these parts, which we have to get there too. But I think this island, we should take advantage of it being so privileged and paradisic as far as the environment. And when we talk about you know, human comfort, also I think has to be said there's a certain tolerance. So if we just insist on our 74 or whatever we consider to be perfect, the director of the kindergarten that I was building for my own hometown, when that was finished, we just days after the building was done, and just to get that straight, in order to run this passive house, which is 50 kilowatt hours per square meter per year, that relates into almost nothing. It's only the size of a hairdryer to heat a building, and where it gets, you know, triple minus degrees. But it needs not AC, but I call it AD, air distribution. So it's the same as we do here with a fan, where we drag the heat out. Over there, it's like what you harvest passively with solar, with the sun. You basically circulate in the building to share with the rooms who don't have direct exposure. So there needs to be ductwork in place, and there needs to be an air handling unit, but that's just distributing the air and uses relatively little energy. But that technology wasn't quite adjusted yet, as it is the trick with technology. No. So the temperature started to plunge and plunge, and my client, who was my buddy from school, who was in charge, got stressed out, and he went to Home Depot and bought a little electric fans, which are defeating the entire purpose because they're the least energy efficient. And the director of the school, I'm very proud of her, she kicked him out. She got really mad at him. She said, "You have no idea what you're doing here. We're on a mission, and we're going to do this mission." She picked up the phone and she called the parents and said, "You please bring a second pair of sweater and bring another sandwich. We have 40 little furnaces here. These are kids. And if we bounce around, if we dress one layer more," and they brought the energy up. And these kids went home and they partied and they celebrated that. You know, and if you understand the, you know, the enthusiasm, that could exponentially, this is why we're so excited about schools. If you do it in your home, it's great. But if you do it in school and you get the children excited about it, like, you know, this young lady you had here 3 weeks ago, Howard, I think that's great. If we make them in charge, they can make that huge difference. And I want to add that I think we're really into the details here, but I want to add a little bit of my philosophy as a teacher and a practicing architect, that we're now at the building scale, but we got to start earlier. And this is what these sustainable communities do. They basically, I was talking about cutting down consumption. And that is if we go back to the old models of living close to where we work and buying our groceries around the corner, if we not even grow them ourselves, which is even better. If we use public transportation, we use something, you know, like trams, which Honolulu
that is not the American way. We need a V8.
But we're in Hawaii.
Hamburgers.
Let's say we're in Hawaii, and let's try what's been working here for what I'm really excited about, the Huapua, you know, that has worked for so many years.
Consciousness is changing. It's completely changing. But I'm being cued. We got to run to a quick break. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to be right back after this quick break.
Aloha. I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBEDT, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Hori. Mahalo.
You're watching Next Big Thing. I'm your host, Attila. With us today is Howard Wiig with DBEDT and Martin Despang. He's with the University of Hawaii's Architectural School. And we're talking about energy efficiency and how we can get the classrooms for our young kids a little bit cooler so that they can focus better and contribute to society just a little bit better than they are doing today. So, of course, energy efficiency is a big topic. It's all about schools, but it's also about homes. You know, one of the things we were talking about during the break is the change in social consciousness, where you know, someone who was a bully in the 80s and 90s is now, or I'm sorry, the jock in the 80s and 90s is now being portrayed as the bully, right? You know, people are you know, they don't want the big Mustang, they want the Prius, and or in my case, the electric car. That's very cool. But you know, it's one of those things where we're moving in that direction. And you know, one of the obstacles, though, I see is that you know, if you look at affordable housing just in general on Oahu, it's all that direction. I'm pointing towards Leeward, right? So out towards Ewa, Kapolei, that's where they're building 30,000 homes over the next decade. And all those homes are probably in that old format that you don't like. What do we do about that?
Well, one thing is the passive design. I don't know if you were the one who designed these homes, but I saw out on the Waianae coast where they have a relatively small closed-in home, and then they have the roof extending out front, and that becomes the carport. That just shelters the cars in front from the sun, and then they extend that extension over an entire side of the home out to at least 10 feet, if not 12 feet. And put a concrete slab on that and electrical outlets on that. And the idea is that whenever you want to have a get-together, a party, you move the TV sets out there, you move all your equipment out there, there's a yard for kids to play with, and you're in the great outdoors, and the only electricity you might be consuming is the TV sets there, and people will go in periodically to the fridge to get beers, and you don't even need to do that. You can just have your ice chest outside.
So extended lanais, moving your operation outside, so rather than spending all your time inside.
It's good for the kids too, because you get them outside.
No, I'm right there with you.
Whoever is interested, we have a model home theoretically developed, so whoever is interested can contact us. Yeah, we have it fully ready. We had exhibited it at the BIA. And we had great feedback. We really, the people are enthused. And what we talked about, the social part, we call it the H home, and H stands for Hawaii, of course, but also the letter has the footprint of the letter H, because it's basically 4 quadrants and then courtyards in between. And the courtyards, we were just talking about food is an important, so we talk about being self-sustained, it's about a system. So we shouldn't isolate certain things, it's about lifestyle basically, right? And so when we think about, you know, these highly energy efficient, or priding themselves as being highly energy efficient, photovoltaic powered, we're still talking $300,000, excuse me, 300,000 is the price of the home, but $300 is the average monthly, you know, air conditioning cost. If we compare that to the cost of food on this island, if you say you eat slim and don't enjoy a lot, then you have like $300–400 per person. Times 4, we're talking $1,600 per person. So we were also promoting to grow your own food. There's an aquaponic pond that you walk over. And so these are principles that segues me into a colleague of mine that I want to mention, Jason Selly, who was the co-teacher of that class. And he's also someone who has just designed and won an AI award for innovative classroom, and that's in addition to schools, and it's all based upon renewable energy and being off the grid. But what's important, it got an AIA award, and for the audience who don't know what AIA is, the American Institute of Architects, so they awarded it basically based upon its design. And I want to stress that it's really, really important. Use another analogy that comes very much from my culture. It's a strange term that I call the Heidi-Klumization of Birkenstock architecture. So that remembers the days, you were talking about the old days and who got bullied and who not in the 80s. In the 80s, I would never have been wearing a pair of Birkenstock because they're either for nurses or tree huggers, and I was none of them at that point. Birkenstock understood that at one point, that they reached the limits of their market. And so has the building industry who does energy efficient homes, because they only reach so many or few people. And we can learn from other industries like Birkenstock, who basically said we might hire Heidi Klum, and she just looks at the shoe and gives it another look. And ever since, you have Birkenstock stores in all Fifth Avenues around the US, and it became a fancy shoe and young people like them. So I think this is really kind of a slogan that is very important for me, that we have to make energy efficiency sexy. We have to have the people want it. It needs to be the cool thing. And I think this comes full circle. We started with the term cool, and I'm using this now and saying, well, there's cool in a physical way, and then there's cool in the perceptual way.
As in Tesla cool.
As in
the
Tesla
ones at
cool.
Tesla.
Exactly.
Right here.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
And and you're totally right. So, you know, your home can also be cool in the same way. You can have an awesome home. I've seen like these these fancy thermostats that tie in with your iPad. Mm-hmm. So gadgets. But I like what you mentioned about, you know, just taking an existing home. So you got to remember. I mean, not all of us. I mean, my office is in Manoa. It's great. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Just depending on which way you orient, keep your windows closed because the water will come right in. But you know, I also live out in Neva Beach. It's a bit of a drive, and you know, you'll drive past tens of thousands of homes on the way there, and these are not energy efficient homes, but they sure would not. They sure would like to lower their $600 a month energy bill. So maybe pouring a slab and putting up additional overhangs, extend your lanais out, move your activities outdoors. That's good advice. We do have mosquitoes, so put up mosquito nets. That's great advice. And we could probably do the same thing for the schools there too, if you think about it.
Another great device that's very unique for Hawaii, or about Hawaii. The School of Architecture in Tucson tried something, tried to make the building off the grid, and they tried something really hard and innovative, but it didn't work out. It was having a vegetative southern sunscreen, and it was the metal grating that plants were supposed to grow on.
Wow.
They were so hot, the plants always burnt their fingers. I don't know how you call that. And here you have a TJ Maxx parking garage where actually they put planters on the roof and the stuff grows down. So I think we should look at vegetation both on the roof as green roofs, as well as at the facades. I think that's something awesome. We built for the University of Göttingen, which is one of Germany's oldest universities, we're lucky to build the first off-the-grid kindergarten. And after careful studies, it basically became one that's had to sit in the campus, and we didn't want to interrupt the campus and interfere. So we basically bermed it into the green space, and it's half underground, submerged underground. And it has an intensive green roof that the children basically go on the roof and harvest the fruits and herbs they harvest there, and then they go down and cook with them. Wow. And that's an awesome experience for the kids. And again, the green roof, you know, it serves its purpose of cooling the building, and at the same time, it's a productive landscape.
It's kind of like the Shire. From Lord of the Rings. They're underground too. It's the same thing. They have green roofs back around. Oh, yeah. Interesting. So that's actually a really good idea. So use vegetation as a way to screen from the sun. Put up photovoltaic. You know, it's funny because I think we had some years back. It was really hot, and I went out to YouTube, and I found that somebody had taken a box fan, and they took copper pipe, and they kind of made a coil around the front of the fan, and they took a fish tank motor, and they stuck it into the coil, and then they had the ice chest, you know, those styrofoam cheap ice chests, dumped a bunch of water and a bunch of ice cubes in there, and they had their own homemade air conditioning system for practically nothing. Obviously, it didn't dehumidify, so you got some, but it was cold. So, I mean, there seems to be some homemade solutions to our traditional R34, or whatever it is, based, you know, air conditioning systems that we use for our homes.
He just took a step back in time by about 100 years, because we measure air conditioning capacity by the ton. Why do we do that? That is the amount of energy that would take to blow air past a ton of ice and dissipate that ton of ice.
Really?
Yeah. Those are the old air conditioners, yeah.
So having a 1-ton air conditioner is 1 ton of ice. Wow. Well, and so you must have an amazing house, Martin. Tell me about your house.
No, I already solved the secret. I live very Spartan, and also by intention, because I think downsizing, in many ways, you were talking about cars, you know, we don't need big SUVs and V8s and stuff like that. We can get by with smaller cars. You talked about, or at least, I mean, for sure, and more energy efficient cars, smaller cars. And so I think the trend, I know the trend, it was even on the title page talking pop culture of the USA Today, one of these weeks where it says small is the new big. So basically downsizing, if you keep your footprint smaller, you have less to clean, you have less to heat, you have less to cool. Well, heating not so much here. You have just less. I mean, the Buddhists have known that and say that all the time, you know, so it's nothing new, very close to Asian culture. So that's another trend to just stay small. And what Howard was saying, we try to design the ideal Hawaiian home in a way that's basically outdoor living. And you have, and we're also very much concerned or you know, obviously care for resilience. A colleague of mine, Dean Sakamoto, that's his expertise, where he thinks about disasters are increasing, so hurricanes become more often and stronger. So how do we protect our homes? But there's again, you know, we don't have to build them castles, you know, there's actually a way. We know from sailing that if the winds get too strong, we got to bring the sail down in order to survive. So there are awesome products that basically were for the. I'm not lobbying for any kind of industry or so because I'm independent, but I can say when things excite me, and that is a system, a roof system that's called EcoShade. It's basically louvers, aluminum louvers on a track that you can open and close, and that was our key in this Hawaiian home. The central space, the central gathering space, is an honor to the traditional holly. So it's a pitched roof, and you know, the large open space. And we basically propose the roof with this EcoShade system. So when everyone comes home to Kapolei, this is where the DHHL development is, and they, you know, think they're cool because from their car they can set their fossil air conditioning from 75 to 72 to feel a little cooler. Then these new neighbors invite them over, and they're sitting in this holly space, and all of a sudden the louvers open and they look into the sky. And it runs on a very simple track, no rocket science, and you only need a square foot of photovoltaic to power that. You have a rain sensor, so when it rains, it shuts closed. And this is promoting, again, the traditional way of Hawaiian living outdoor using modern technology. I think that's what gets, and then obviously the neighbors who thought they were cool with their iPhone and setting their fossil air conditioning don't think so anymore because the neighbors are cooler, and then we win, you know. Then basically what I call the post-fossil becomes the thing that's desirable that everyone wants.
Just be wary of the homeowners associations out there, because they may say, no, your house looks different than your neighbors.
Yeah, no, we're aware. Then we got to build a whole community out of them, and it's not, we don't have that problem.
Or find some way that it looks the same. So it looks like a regular roof, and all of a sudden it opens up. You could probably even use the same roof tiles or some sort of plastic version of the same thing.
Yeah. Or we also gotta. Sometimes you gotta educate and educate. You do things. The people who were surprised, the real people who would buy the home, especially the local people, they had no problem with. It's like an evolution, you know. When things change, when things have to adapt, then it looks different, and then it's accepted by nature. Why shouldn't it be different in architecture?
And you brought up, in mentioning small, you brought up a new, very hot topic, affordable housing in Kaka'ako. The builders would much rather build for the millionaires, but you have to have homes for the middle class people. How are you going to do that? Answer: small. New York and San Francisco are now building studio apartments for a single person, 250 square feet. And one example is you have what looks like a barren wall, but you take it down in one way, it becomes a table with little chairs sticking out. You take it down in another way, and it's a bed. That's how you live in 250 square feet. Or for a couple, 350 square feet. The smaller the square feet, they lower the price. That's how to make it affordable.
That's how they did it in Japan, I know. Yeah, you stack it up. But I think they have very high ceilings also. I noticed a lot of the high-rises here, they don't have the standard 9-foot ceilings. They have, I don't know what it is exactly, but less than 9. It's like 8. I can jump up and practically
you need a high
touch it.
ceiling to have the air escape, and then you need to have the space for the fan to keep the head cool. That's very, very important.
Well, so I guess we should probably wrap it up with something related to what we originally started talking about, which is the kids. What are we going to do about the kids? Can we expect our schools to have better temperatures, or should we just send our kids to school with a little personal fan and hope for the best?
The measures that I talked about, the cool roof, cool walls, window film, skylights, and turning all the computers off, can lower the interior temperature during a hot day by as much as 8 degrees. 8 degrees makes a lot of difference. Our kids are local, they can stand warm, they can't stand hot. If this were Minnesota, it might be too warm, but we're used to warm temperatures in this environment. At say 82 degrees, you do not sweat. You're comfortable, and you can be so naturally, with a teeny fraction of the energy use that AC would take.
Well, plus, these kids, if you can wear them out by putting them in a hot room, sometimes that's worth it also. So there you go. Howard Martin, thank you so much for coming on to the show and sharing your vision. Is there any contact information you want to share before we go off?
My phone number is 587-3811.
And your architecture firm?
My architecture firm is called Despang Architekten. It's easy to Google, just that. You get our website. And my phone number is 808-429-6708. And so, feel free to contact us. Thanks for having us, Attila. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you guys for coming by. Of course, if you liked our show, feel free to like us on Facebook. I'm your host, Attila Saras. Stay tuned for more Think Tech, and be sure to tune in next week for more of our show, Next Big Thing. Aloha.